Hi guys, this is a completely unnecessary video, but I'm going to make it anyways. What if Christie was the nominee in 2016 and ran against Bernie Sanders? Okay, so in this edition we have Mr. Christie. I'm going to go with the last names, yes we are, and he's running against the Democrat Bernie Sanders. Now what we can say about this alternative 2016 election is that a few states are going to switch hands. This is quite different. Bernie Sanders is probably not as good in the suburbs, but he can be better among young people, even in the rural areas. Well, Christie is not Trump, he is a governor with some experience, and therefore he could do better in some surprising places. First of all, there are a bunch of safe states, we all know that. This Midwestern wall is quite safe, with the exception of Texas and the 2nd District of Nebraska. The South is quite solid for Christie, but I'm going to put the states of Georgia and Missouri as likely. Indiana and West Virginia are safe, and we have these western states. And of course we have the state of Alaska, and for Bernie, I by the way went for the first name when it came to Bernie, because that's what we're using. When we talk about Sanders, that could be so many people, right? So we're going for Bernie. He would of course have won California, Washington and Oregon, he would have won Hawaii, and he would have won Illinois, probably by safe or like the margin. I'll go for safe. And he would have won New York, his home state of Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, as well as 1st District of Maine. Now this is starting to look very familiar, with a few exceptions, because Christie is not Trump and Bernie is not Hillary, so things will change. In our timeline, we remember that the states of Virginia and North Carolina went to the Democrat and the Republican respectively, and I think that this would also be the case here. Even though Bernie is not doing that well in the suburbs, he would do much worse in Virginia but still win it, and I think that Christie will still win in the state of North Carolina. But we still haven't filled in the East Coast, so maybe we should do that as well, because Bernie would not do that well on the East Coast, but he would probably take his neighbor state of New Hampshire by a sort of narrow margin. Christie and Bernie would both be better candidates there, I think. Going to Maine, Bernie would still win Maine, but the 2nd District I think would narrowly go to Christie. No, it went to Trump by 10. I think Christie would still win it by 2, 3, maybe 4 points. Simply because that is not a place where Bernie is very strong. We still have not filled in all the states on the East Coast, and I'm going to wait a while with the state of New Jersey, but I do believe that the state of Delaware would only be lean for Sanders and Connecticut would be likely. This is because of Christie's strength in the suburban areas on the East Coast that would be exceptionally strong versus Sanders, and that makes these states more in play. In some scenarios I can even see Christie winning in the state of Delaware. But Bernie Sanders would probably win the state of New Mexico. I mean, it is a Democratic state, but that big margin of votes between Romney and Obama, between Clinton and Trump, it's just too much to overcome. Christie, however, would win the state of Arizona by a likely margin. I also believe that he would win the state of Florida. But we're not at Florida yet, well, he would still win it. 2016 was a Republican strong year. People were cheering for them. You could see that they actually won the popular vote in the US House, though not in the presidency. But Florida was always going to go to the Republicans in 2016. You can make arguments against that, but hey. Going to the upper Midwest, I think that Bernie would actually be able to win the state of Minnesota. He would not be that strong in the suburbs, as said, but he also did not have to run against someone like Trump, who is very good in the rural areas and talks a lot about trade. For that same reason, I think he would have won the state of Iowa. And going to the state of Wisconsin, Christie would be very good in the suburbs around Milwaukee, but in the end it would be a very close state. I believe it would go down the wire, as it did in 2000 and 2016 and 2020. But in the end, I'm going to go for my feeling that it would be a Bernie state. I believe that he has done very well here in the primaries. Not that that's a big argument, but remember that the rural parts of Wisconsin are usually quite blue, and Bernie is not some sort of candidate that would simply make all of those rural Democratic Union voters vote Republican. And I think Christie would be not the worst candidate, but I think he would not be able to win the state of Wisconsin nor the state of Michigan. Now, with Michigan, you have auto workers, you have many reasons that electing a socialist is not a good mood for the state of Michigan, but in the end, very few candidates, very few Republicans would be able to win the state of Michigan, and I don't believe that Christie would do it, even though Trump was able to in 2016. And now we are getting closer, and we have 5 states remaining, all of which are swing states in this election. But I do believe that the state of Colorado would go to the Republican Chris Christie. Because if you compare him with Trump, I think that he would do much better in the suburbs of Denver. He would do better in El Paso County, which is the big Republican county in Colorado. It's where Colorado Springs is. And Bernie is also a weak candidate in those exact areas. And because of the astonishing amount of votes that are there, I think that it would go to Christie. Going to the state of Nevada, it's a state where Bernie did very well in the primaries. He did not too well in the more casino loyal electorate. He would do very well among the young college educated voters, or college voters really. But I think that it would be a very tight state. In the end, the Reid machine would not have the same strength on behalf of a socialist as it has on behalf of establishment capitalist Democrats like Catherine Cortez Masto and Harry Reid, and I think that Chris Christie would actually be able to take the state of Nevada narrowly. Now going to the remaining states, which are all in the Rust Belt, aka the East Coast, because some states can be both. New Jersey is his home state. It is also usually a Democratic state. This time it will be more competitive. We are going to say that New Jersey goes to Chris Christie, because in 2013, when he won re-election by a very big margin, there was also a poll that said in New Jersey the voters would prefer Hillary Clinton as president over Christie, but that was by 5 points, 49 to 44. And against Bernie it will be different. It will also be a question of turnout, but a lot of black voters would not turn out for Bernie. A lot of Jewish voters would. But when it comes to it, the massive suburbs would not trend Democratic in this scenario like they did against Trump, because Christie would keep them Republican. And as we also call now the state of Ohio for Christie, he would win the election. So the last question is of course the state of Pennsylvania, and by the way, Ohio, Trump won it by 8, Christie would also win it by, not by the same margin, he would not do that well in the Ohio Valley, but he would probably win it by 3 points, 4 points, something. Now the state of Pennsylvania is a difficult one. You have the suburbs around Philly, you have the area around Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania would heavily break for Christie, and he would not be blown out in the Philly suburbs. Would he win the state? He would have to make up 6 points from the Obama-Romney map of 2012. In the end, it would be very narrow, but I think that he would actually narrowly, by tilt margin, take the state of Pennsylvania, because there would be more support for Bernie in the rural areas, but Bernie simply would not get the turnout that he needed in the suburbs and the Philadelphia area itself among blacks in Western Philadelphia, for example. Why would they go out to vote for Bernie? So this is the final result. Christie with 303 and Bernie with 235, so it's very close to the actual result. In reality though, I doubt that these people would ever get the candidacy or the nominations from these two parties. And if you actually watched this video to the end, I thank you, I applaud you. I probably never would, because this was such an unnecessary video. I need to think over my life and try to make better decisions in the future. Anyway, that's all I had for you guys today. Please like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.